Hey, let's continue our deep dive into fingerboards and CNC. A couple weeks ago I put together a video where I showed I was making multiple fingerboards and trying some new CNC techniques, and this week I'm going to push some different envelopes and make this really wild fingerboard for this really wild instrument I'm working on. And I'm going to use this big thick Richlite project panel to do it, so check it out. Sometimes I share what I'm doing in real time on Instagram in my stories, and that's where I opened up this Richlite project panel and showed it off for the first time a few weeks ago. The goal here was to make the CNC do as much of the work as possible, and as you can see already from looking at this 3D model that I created in Aspire, my Vectric software, that there's a lot of complicated and compound curves and angles going on here. But it seemed to work out pretty good by just creating a separate sort of cove in between each fret and then applying all of that to the radius I had already created. That's just a gentle slope across the whole fingerboard. And then it was just a matter of milling it out. I had several hours invested into it that far, but now it's time for my Avid CNC to earn its keep. You can see, like in the previous fingerboard video I made, I did put some dowels that go through this fingerboard right into the wasteboard of the CNC, and then those dowels will be covered over by the inlays that I do later, and they will act as position markers to help me align the fingerboard to the instrument. It was tricky to do on this particular instrument because of the way the inlays were set up. There weren't a lot of opportunities to do this and hide them later. Part of the theme of this instrument is conflict, and we're showcasing that in a couple different ways between the materials that we're using and some of the shapes and the way the instrument is cut. But it's supposed to represent its ancient roots that go back thousands of years, and also this very modern vibe and aesthetic. And one of the ways we did that is by creating these inlays, where on the left we're using these ancient Chinese numerals, and on the right we're using the modern Arabic numerals that most of the world uses nowadays. I filled them in with some Total Boat epoxy that I tinted white and let it sit overnight to cure. Okay, while the epoxy cures, I want to take a minute to tell you that this video is not sponsored by Richlite. I've been working with them a little bit for a while now, and I really like the product. I really like what they do, and so I'm just doing this because I want to. I'm sure, as most of you know, I'm kind of an environmentalist and I don't use rare and exotic woods, only reclaimed and locally sourced materials. So that limits my options for good hardwoods and durable woods for fingerboards, which is where Richlite comes in, because it's not wood and they make a product that is great for fingerboards and, dare I say, better than wood. Richlite is a micarta, and it is made in the United States using recycled paper and eco-friendly resin practices. I could go into detail, but I would just recommend going to their website and reading their sustainability page, or checking out this video that they made showing the process. Also, if you want to learn more about micarta, I'm going to be following up this video probably next week with another video where me and my friend Jeff from Narwhal Labs are going to make our own micarta using fabric. So check that out. It came out pretty wild. Once you see this next video where we DIY our way through the micarta, you'll see the pros and cons of doing that. The pros are we made something really unique and I can't wait to share it with you, but the cons are that it's a ton of work, a ton of expense, a ton of material, and it makes that Richlite price tag make a lot more sense. And like I said, I really do think it's better than the dark exotic woods that it's replacing. I mean, not just better price-wise and look-wise, but better all the way around. This is one of those cases where doing the right thing and the green thing is better than the old-fashioned way. So, all right, let's get back to the build. I really like the finish I got in my last CNC fingerboard project, where I did one finishing tool path at 45 degrees and then the second one at 135 degrees to make a cross hatch. And that's what I did this time. After doing the first one and doing the epoxy, I did the second one at that different angle to clean up the epoxy overflow, and it worked really well. It turned out really pretty, but you can see very vaguely that crosshatch pattern that I machined it in, and you could almost leave it and just finish it because you can, it's just such a minute thing. The surface is so hard and it really shows off everything, but I did decide to sand through them and polish it to try to bring it up to a bit of a luster. By putting it on the buffing wheel before I put the frets in, it gave me an option to see if there were any spots that I needed to go back and sand some more before I had to work around the frets. Fretting this thing was interesting to say the least. Never mind the fact that it has, I think, 27 frets. Some of them are almost 4 inches long, and obviously the fret call press I have is not going to cover that. So they actually turned out pretty good. I didn't have any major problems, but I just had to sort of get creative with how I push them in. It's a lot of fret wire. You got to be real careful doing stuff like this. Don't do this your first time. I still have to level and crown the frets and dress the ends, but that'll all get done once it's on the instrument. And this is where it's going to stop for now. But it's pretty cool seeing all these compound curves and the scallops being carved out in the CNC. Really happy with the way it turned out. This is going to be a fingerboard for another 5-string electric pipa that I'm making for Jaju from the band The Either. If you didn't see the first one that I made, check out the video. I'll put a link, and you can check out that instrument. And the goal with that one was to make the pipa as much like a guitar as possible. But this time we're trying to make it more like a pipa, which has high frets and this wide fingerboard for doing radical bends and pushes and stuff. And this is sort of like the guitar meets pipa, but a little more on the pipa side of the family than the last one. And I would show you the whole instrument, but I'm not going to show you it right now. You're going to have to wait until it's closer to done. It's going to be wild. So stay tuned for that. And also make sure you check out the follow-up video I'm doing. Here's a little sneak peek of the micarta blank that me and Jeff from Narwhal Labs made here in my shop. And this is what it looks like now. I can't wait to see what it's going to look like when I carve a fingerboard out of it. Back to work. All right, thanks a lot for watching, and be good.